We are living in the era of hype, and hype is masquerading as value. Here's what I mean. Nvidia just had their earnings yesterday. Now, for a date and timestamp, this is February 22nd in the afternoon as I record this. And as you'll see, I've got it pulled up on the screen. I actually did a previous video about NIO and Nvidia. They've been partners for a very long time. But back to the earnings from yesterday. Nvidia, it was their CFO who started speaking initially on the call, and she said AI about 60 times. I'm not kidding. I actually looked in the transcript because after she just kept repeating AI, 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 I was just like, all right, this is crazy. This is a keyword that they're using to help hype things. Now, not to take away from the performance of the company, NVIDIA is doing great things. It's very impressive what they've done. But I just couldn't help and I really wanted to bring attention to this because this is exactly the kind of thing that in this era that we're living in, whether it's AI or back when the EV hype and people, really got caught up in that. And we saw stock prices run for lots of different companies and that sort of thing. It's really interesting. And I think important, at least for me, to kind of acknowledge and recognize when these things are happening. So the reality is that I just can't believe that they didn't have some sense of the sort of hype that's around and surrounding AI, and that they didn't kind of structure that in intentionally within the opening comments to say that so many times. Artificial intelligence, this is a hot item that people are very excited about. So I will link this video that I have pulled up on the screen, the NIO NVIDIA partnership, and some of the things like the EV plus the AI. Is this the future? And even within the earnings call yesterday from NVIDIA, they talked about how some of the things are changing in the basically EV space, but new energy vehicles is what they call them in China. And this is one of the things that I'm watching. I don't think this is widely recognized in the US, which is why I still think it's really early in a lot of ways. But that video was actually, I put it out about 5 months ago, and it was around the time that NVIDIA was having its last earnings. I think that's why I dropped it at that time, because I was very curious what would happen with their earnings. And so here we go. This is 2024, the year of AI. And it is also, we're in an era, not just this year, but recently, where hype is masquerading as value. So in the short term, what happens? I saw NVIDIA, and you know what? I'll pull it up right now. The stock, oops, wrong thing. That's the earnings transcript, though. I will share that. I'll put that in the link below so you can check it out and count it off for yourselves if you want to, how many times she said AI. But this is the NVIDIA chart. Here's what I want to do. This was 3 o'clock right here. This is 3 o'clock, $667 roughly is where it was trading, about $668. And then big move came after when the earnings were released and all of the AI citations by the CFO for NVIDIA. So big move for NVIDIA after hours. It went to all-time highs. It still continues to go today, the day after those earnings. At the same time, we saw the SPY go up along with it, starting yesterday after hours. This is the reality of where we're living. And here's my thought. And the question that I have is, when or will the EV stuff catch on, and will people get excited about that again? I don't think it helps NIO stock that on the same day that NVIDIA had this, massive, huge earnings with all this hype around the AI space. And as I said, NVIDIA has been partnered with NIO for a lot of years, but it's just interesting and fascinating to think and see Lucid and Rivian, who I do not and have never really considered to be competitors of NIO, both have really poor earnings, and both stocks sold off, and that sort of carried over into today. And early on in today, in the morning, I remember seeing a lot of trade volume for NIO, and it was also down. So, here's one of my thoughts. And again, I just kind of like to share some of what I observe. I'm constantly sort of watching and thinking and studying and trying to learn. But in this case, I'm wondering how many big firms, institutional investors, perhaps sold a basket. Maybe they had a bunch of investments in the EV sector, and they have been selling out of some of those. And for example, if they own NIO and Lucid and Rivian and some others, and have basically been in on all those at the same time, and then decide to lessen their position or sell some of that, that's one of the things that could be happening. We could also see big dogs, some of the big money institutional investors who recognize that NIO is not like those other companies who, this is a company that they're the first EV maker to also come out with a smartphone. that integrates with the car. They've got the power swap, the battery swap, and the V2G. They're already doing this stuff. They have an energy play. They have, well, I know I can't even think of it. I'm just trying to list it all off the top. Sorry. It's just this is a company like nothing we've ever seen. There's a reason I picked it. It's because I think they're going to do a lot more things and people are going to recognize for a while. But that also means it is potentially susceptible to things like suppressed stock price action, like selling off, like all the things we've seen over the last few years, especially with shorts involved. I have to do a separate video just to talk about that because that's its own, it deserves its own topic and hours could be spent on it. And we really still wouldn't even get deep into what goes on there. So, you've got a company in NIO that has come out with their own chip that, so, again, if you want to be excited about the AI and that hype, well, then look at what NIO's doing with designing their own in-house chip. And that comes on the heels of partnering and having partnered with and using chips from Nvidia for years. So again, this is a company that's positioned in so many different ways. I'm talking about NIO, but I don't know how much of the negativity toward the EV space segment, the different companies. And also this is a big factor too. I'm in the US. There's a huge disconnect and the US market is very different than the Chinese market. I have never expected the same things to happen. For example, I don't think that EVs will be the only option in the future in the US. I've never thought that. I've never felt that would be the case. And so recognizing things like China as kind of the first big adopter, as one of the biggest countries in the world with the EVs and ushering in the new energy vehicle space segment, it's just going to look different there versus even Europe versus the US. And so, and again, when you get to different countries, different regulations come into play. Even within the United States, we have city codes, we've got county regulations, there are state and federal laws and rules and regs. It's a lot to wade through. It's not the same when you go outside of, say, the country of China, where it's basically, this is the law, this is what it is. It's just, this is the way, period. And we're going in this direction. So that is also stuff that I kind of keep in mind and have since I first was digging into and researching this company, NIO. But I know I kind of just talked on, and I didn't mean to talk that much. So let me get this thing up and out. Drop it in the comments. I want to hear from other people on this. Do you also see this? Do you think that this hype, we're living in a world where hype is what it's about? And is this the kind of thing where, again, I've seen some people kind of compare what's going on now with the AI hype to the .com bubble and that sort of thing. I wonder how much further this thing goes. We are in an election year here in the US in 2024. So, factor that in. I think we'll see some crazy stuff, not just within the US market before the end of 2024, but I also think we're going to see some great things from NIO, and including maybe 2 sub-brands being released in this year. So again, sorry, let me wrap and get this thing up and out. Thanks for stopping through. Thanks for liking the video. Click the thumbs up if you want. I normally forget to even ask, so I'm kind of proud that I did. It was random, but we're going with it anyway. Thanks. Have a great day.